Thank you so much. And now I think that we are going to go back, if you don't mind, to our AHP. We finished actually with AHP. We'll start looking into our rating setup, and we'll try to work through it.
Elena, I think that's Zofia Rybak. She put in the chat. Will be able to see the full topic.
They will.
Somewhere.
Yes. I keep an eye on it. Thank you, Anna. We are providing all the material in a shared space for all the students, including the cases as they were shared initially from the mayor. I think that there wasn't a change, right? All right. Thank you, all of you. And you have given us really nice ideas and starters for solving a lot of different problems. I think that there are a lot of perspectives that we can analyze with these methods. Let's see what our teams are going to use. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Excellent. Let's go then back to our training. With ratings, we had started discussing about situations where we have really a lot of different alternative solutions and we don't have just one. What happens in those situations? How do we handle them? Obviously, we would like, if possible, to avoid having a lot of pairwise comparisons and spending an incredible amount of time because we have 20 or 30 items to evaluate. So there is a way to work through that situation. Just give me a second because you see, but do I see my screen? Here we are. I think that our recording is back on, so we should have all the material. And also because I saw that you were asking about the case study, we are preparing a PDF with 3 cases that he presented. They are just 3 short paragraphs. That means that it will give you plenty of space to think your own perspectives and give your own spin on the situations. They are more like, these are the problematic areas over here. And this is the city. You can find a lot of information about the city. We are going also to share with you some links that refer to the city and the setup. And what you really need to do is to find a perspective of a perspective of the problem that you want to dwell in, along with some kind of alternative decisions, alternative solutions for that problem. So getting back now to our ratings model, what's the difference between pairwise comparisons versus ratings? When you compare the alternatives, you really have more leeway. If you don't know the situation and you don't know that much, pairwise comparing helps you pinpoint the important topics and focus on them. If, however, you have a lot of different alternatives, you have a way to assure that the alternative solutions are independent to each other. And also, you know some kind of ideal or standard, then you're welcome to use ratings. Summarizing, alternatives independent. We have an ideal alternative in mind that we will be used to compare everything against it. And the number of alternatives is quite large, and that doesn't allow us to go for pairwise comparisons. In real life situations, for example, we have an HR problem. We have 20 applications for a specific position. We have some decision criteria, and we have pairwise compared them using an AHP model that didn't include alternatives in order to find out which criterion is the most important criterion. So far, so good. we know what is the profile of the ideal candidate for that position. And now we are going to start rating each alternative solution against the criteria. We will not compare candidate A versus B, B versus C, and so on, because that would be too time consuming. What we are going to do is say, candidate A, with respect to the ideal that I have in my mind, how well it rates against criterion A, B, or C. And we will repeat the process for each candidate. Now, if it's a really important position or a really important decision for that matter, then we could consider to take the 2 or 3 top applicants that come up from the ratings model and take them to a second level of a pairwise comparison so we can end up with a final solution. But that's not necessary, it's just a different approach. Rating scales is kind of what makes or breaks a ratings model. It's what makes the models good and applicable versus not so good. One must be able to say how high or how low the alternatives rate on each criterion. To do that, you must have something in mind that we call ideal. For example, if I'm evaluating bridges, I need to know what is the standard, the official standard of when a bridge qualifies as a safe to use bridge. If we are talking about roads, I need to know what are the values of the different factors in order to identify what's the best possible situation and how my alternatives, the different roads that I'm evaluating, mark against it. A scale is really a group of intensities, and you have used a lot of balance scales so far. Every time that you set up a questionnaire, that you send out a questionnaire, you had a scale. Usually you would be using Likert scales with 5 or 7 levels, or even 3 sometimes, where the idea is to always have the same number of positives and negatives and just one neutral item in the middle of it. However, what we have different over here is that the scales in a ratings model, when we are in the AHP method, excuse me, don't need to be equally distant. Why wouldn't we want them to be equally distant? Probably you are thinking. But there is a very important reason. Have you ever noticed what's the distance between an A+ to an A when you are getting feedback from your professors? I can tell you that an A+ is really close to an A. It's just a mistake difference. You do a tiny mistake, and that's not an A+ anymore, probably. It's an A. But do you know what's the difference between a B+ and a B? It's huge. It's at least having set up differently than what you should be, having misunderstood the problem, really. So even when you have a scale that looks pretty consistent, like a grading scale, the truth is that the distance between different components might be larger or smaller depending on how you are using that scale. That's exactly what you want to represent with the scales in our AHP A&P setup. Let's see a small example for ratings. I have a pharmaceutical company. They are evaluating how to allocate their budget for 3 or 4 different projects. The projects that they are evaluating are invest in more equipment, upgrade the old technology, buy new machines, create in-house marketing services, or buy a new mass production equipment. And that's good. What do we do from that point on? Well, two things. On one hand, I need to set up an AHP model like I did before, with the difference that I will not put in my AHP model any alternatives. So I'll have my criteria, that is advanced production, streamline efficiency, increase revenue, and promote innovation. You see them up here. And for each of those criteria, if I compare them with my goal, I can identify the priorities. And that way I will have, in my case, that 53% of the priority goes to increase the revenue, and 23, almost 23, to advance the products. The rest of the priorities go to promoting innovation and streamlining the efficiency. Now, having these priorities that come from the AHP model, and never ever forget, first we do the AHP model without the alternatives to get the weight for the criteria, and then we continue with our ratings model. For each of the items that we have, for each of the criteria, I'll have to define a scale. The scales might be the same or different. We usually say that we will define a simple scale with not a lot of members items when the priority of the corresponding criterion is not very high. So if it's not a very important criterion, then I don't need a lot of details in your answers. And if it's a very important criterion, like in our case, the increase of revenue, then I want a lot of details from you. When I have this information, I can start rating each of my alternative solutions independently. The totals that you see over here is the sum product of the values that you get on the row times the priorities. How did I get these values? These values are the priorities of the scale item that you use, and they come from AHP like before. So for every scale that you use in ratings, you pairwise compare the items that belong to the scale to get the priority. And I know it sounds confusing. We'll go in a second and try to set it up in examples so we can see how it really works. What we are going to do now is we are going to go back to our original model. Do you all have the model set up? If you don't, just tell me and I'll share with you the model that I have right here through our chat. So this is my model. This was the original model. I'll nicely save it. Yeah. And I'm going to also convert it to a ratings model. How do we do that? We heard a little bit about the theory, but let's see how do we do it in practice. First of all, you see those alternatives along with all the judgments that we very carefully made. Now we can take them out. A ratings model has its goal, criteria. If you need sub-criteria, and we are going to actually go through that route. So I'm going to improve my model a little bit by adding now sub-criteria. I'm going to add a cluster called menu sub-criteria. And that's what I want to do right now is to say that I care both about the variety and how much we like the appeal of the menu. Let's call it preference switch. It's shorter. In this situation, I'm going to connect, enable connections, and connect the menu to the two sub-criteria. Before I go to the ratings, I'll have, if I make changes like that, to make sure that I go to the judgment section, don't click too fast, hide the left side panel, and try to find from the left-hand side menu, the menu. And here you can ask me which one for me is more important, the variety in the menu or how much I like the menu. Now it depends. If I was going out with friends, probably I would like a variety so they can also order things that they like. And if I'm going by myself, having just my lunch to pick up, probably I care slightly more about how much I like the specific items. Now I have this priority 2 in place. And that means that I can turn off my connections. I won't be adding any connections anytime soon. And go to the rating side. Don't forget to save. In the ratings model, you add the lowest level criteria. If a criterion does not have sub-criteria, like price, it goes in. If a criterion, like menu, has sub-criteria, then the sub-criteria get in and not the item itself. So all the bottom level criteria will go in my model. Each of these bottom level criteria gave me a column in the model, a column associated with the priority that corresponds to that criterion or sub-criterion. Now, because some of the items might be less important, you might see that they are getting lower priorities. And that means that I'll probably choose less important, smaller scales. So one column for each bottom level criterion, we got it. Now we can add our alternatives. And I'm going to extend my search because the idea is that whenever you have a ratings model, you can add and remove as many alternatives as you want, as often as you want, without creating any issues. And we have yada. I'm going to add also that maybe it's a McDonald's day. I like their fries, sorry. Or it might be a Taco Bell day. And I could have as many alternatives as I wanted. I just put a few there. All right, next step. Before the next step, let's mention something because I kind of told you about it, but we didn't see it in detail. In an A&P model or an AHP model, when you add or remove alternatives, you might and you'll need to reevaluate the situation. Why? Because the context has changed. For example, let's say that I'm trying to rent an apartment. I'm just going for 6 months for a spring-summer school, and I need to rent an apartment. I'm given 3 initial options. The first one is really what I like, but it's slightly above budget. The second one is not exactly what I like, not exactly the price that I like, but it is within budget. And the third one, it's really, really bad. I don't want to even consider the third one. I do my HP model with my criteria, pairwise compare. It comes up that I should sign a contract with the second house. And I'm going to do that. However, the moment that I go to sign, my friend says, hey, look, there is a new opportunity. Why don't you check it out? And new alternative solutions comes into play. Okay, I'm going to check it out. This option, this apartment, is exactly like the one that it was slightly above my budget. It's priced 4 times as much as the one that I kind of said no. At that point of time, I realized that the price that I was getting for the old option one was extremely good, and I was lucky to find it. And that's why I changed my mind. I say, no, I'll go with the expensive one because it appears that it's a very good deal. On top of the fact that I like it and the difference from my budget is really minimal, and I think that I can afford it. And that's what we call a rank reversal. The rank of the alternatives was B, A, C. I added an alternative D in the mix, and it made me rethink the situation. And now the new setup is A, B, C, and D. That's a rank reversal. That is something that doesn't happen in ratings, meaning that you can add or remove alternatives. Obviously, you will reevaluate the values, but the score of each specific alternative will not, the total score, will not change because you added or removed 5 alternatives. And the reason is because the ratings are values that are given independently. You forget that the other alternatives exist while you enter values for the ratings. How do you choose the scales? On one hand, there are scales that we have set up. On the other hand, we try to define the scales based on what we are setting up. For example, for price, I could put a range of prices. For example, if I was evaluating things related to vacation costs or specific cars that I'm evaluating. In this case, each store has its own menu, and some items will be more expensive and some items less expensive, depending on, let's say, the perspective of the store itself. However, I can always say that the prices at that store are high, medium, low. Now, this will not give me values, and if I try to use it, I will not get anything back. However, at this point, I can say compare. And give me a second because you will not be otherwise able to see the pop-up windows. And here we are. I think that high is high is 3 times more expensive than medium, and high is 6 times more expensive than low, and medium is only 2 times more expensive than low. Computation, showing you priorities so you can see what you're saying, and if you agree with the scale that you set up. I don't really agree, so I decide to change a little bit my calculations and see how that will affect the priorities. Yeah, we are closer to what I had in my mind, but it's still high, much more than the other two. So I'm going to try to close up the gap. Yes, I think that this makes more sense for me. And at this time, I'm going to save file, save and close. I can reuse the scales that I like. So if I really liked my high medium scale that I just made, I can save it to a file, high, medium, low. And then I can say that I would like this high, medium, low also for the speed. Load from file. I'll go and grab the file that I just created. And here we go. I used my existing one. Well, quality and speed seem to be very important, however. Quality, I'm going to use one of the ready scales, excellent to poor. And I have my scale for quality. So we have price, we have quality. What about variety? Variety has a very low priority. So I'm going to do how medium low, but I think that the difference is kind of minimal. So I'll go for very close values. For preference, priority is still low, but I think that I would feel more comfortable if I use why not? We can use different scales that we have available. For preference, we could say that we'll use a high, medium, low with wide values this time. Speed we have, we just did it. Quality of service. Quality of service, it doesn't get a lot of priority. Look over here. However, I still think that I can use one of my existing scales, the high to freaky. How medium, low, and let's say unacceptable. Sometimes I just change the name to make sense to me while I do the rating. And we're here. I forget that other alternatives exist while I do this part. So now I'm going to say that Primanti's price is low. Now notice, if I was in a pairwise environment, I wouldn't put Primanti low, having in my group the McDonald's option, which is less expensive, obviously less expensive. However, because in ratings, I'm kind of promising to evaluate everything in an independent way, can't say anything. I'll go on and say, okay, Primanti is low based on my opinion. Quality is average. Variety is high. My preference of the menu is low and the speed is high. And the quality of service, well, I didn't like it the times that I went, so I'll go for low. And I'm going to repeat the process for each of my alternatives. Taking into consideration that I'm solving this model right now for me. Now, when you will be setting up your models, actually, you would like to find a way to include the strategic objectives of the city as you share them, as you will read about them, and also the perspective should be of the decision makers and stakeholders related to your specific situation. Back to my lunch here, Panera. Variety. I think that it's pretty good, let's be honest. Preference, pretty good. Speed, Not very good. Quality of service, I think medium. Piada price. Now, if you ask me compared to the previous ones, I would say high. But because I don't know what's on the other side, I'll say medium, leaving the high for something that is really expensive, like a seated dinner at a restaurant or a steakhouse. Quality, average. Variety, low. Preference, medium. Speed, medium-ish. Quality of service is actually medium, I think. McDonald's. Let's see, price. Low, obviously low. Quality, let's say independently. I'll go for below average. Variety high, preference medium, speed high, now medium lately. Quality of service medium. Taco Bell price low, quality average. And then for the variety, we will have medium, I would say. Preference medium. They're pretty fast. Quality of service medium. And what do we have? We have our first rating result. If I say synthesize now, you will see that my preference remains what it was. I was consistent, at least with my choices. And Panera is the best option, followed by Piada, Primanti, and McDonald's and Taco Bell, that were the new additions, didn't go very well because of my quality requirements in my solution. If I wanted, I could do an AHP sensitivity, but I would need to focus on the criteria. With respect to specific priorities. If I tried to do the super matrix priority, however, you would see how my alternatives get evaluated based on the criteria and the values that I have given. Same way of analyzing, a little bit more complex sensitivity graph, just because you have multiple alternatives at play. Daniel, which numbers were you asking? The numbers over here? Okay, they come from the judgments. The judgments and the priorities of the criteria. If you go computation priorities, you will see that you end up with two different columns. One are the priorities as they come from the results over here, and the second one are the normalized by cluster priorities. What you see on top of your ratings model is what comes from your overall values. So they look a little bit strange because they are not normalized by cluster. But if you take, for example, variety and preference, and you add them up and divide by the total, you will see the normalized by cluster priority. Make sense? Excellent. 2 out of 3.5 methods out. We are doing pretty well, I think. So now that we started with our AHP models, I'm going to save this ratings model, and I'll take you to the other family of methods, the A and P. And I'll show you why. I'm going to open the initial model that we started with, the AHP. And I'll say, hey, I think that my model, it's not strictly a tree. It has more ramifications and more details that I need to adapt. How am I going to do that? Well, if you, first of all, remind me to save us so we can keep our original model. So now we are going for the analytic network process. Analytic network process is the same idea of pairwise comparing that we had so far. However, now I am removing the requirement of having everything in a tree structure, and I'm letting you set up the relationships among the clusters and the nodes in the way that really is in reality. So you're free to connect between the clusters, to connect within the same cluster. Go crazy, completely crazy. As long as it is realistic and it follows reality, you can put any connection. Step 1, converting an AHP model to an ANP. Get rid of the goal. We don't have a root, a head, a goal for our model. And that's cool. Decision factors, alternative. We usually say and expect that the alternative will be related to the alternatives will be related back to the factors. And that's one of the most common connections. So I'm going to enable my connections and connect the alternatives back to the decision factor. Why? How? First of all, because right now I'm telling you, hey, it's not only that the decision factors affect the alternatives, but each alternative, each solution has its own profile based on the decision factors. I think that we will need a minute for that. So let's go to the judgments. It probably will help us see it the right way. We are over here and we have our judgments. What do we need to do? Yes. If you go now, you will see that we have some extra judgments to enter. They will have the names of the alternatives. Why? Because, and you can choose any way that you want to enter the values. A lot of judgments. Seems a bit scary. That's true. When you go to an ANP model, you are increasing by a lot the number of judgments that you have to enter. However, you also increase the accuracy of the solution that you're getting. Now, in the exam that we will do after our break, you will see that an AHP model helps you see a specific perspective of the situation, while an ANP is used for a different one. So we'll have to keep that in mind. Primanti. What am I asking now? Yes, I want to find out whether Primanti is well known for its good prices, the quality of its products, the variety of the menu, and the speed. And I can tell you, actually, you could go through the questionnaire or you can listen kind of me. I think that for this specific place, I know that, let's see, that price should be one of the most important factors. Price is one of the overall most important factors. Price is actually really higher than quality. Price versus menu, I'm reading over here. I think that they are pretty good, both of them. It has good a variety at least. I might like it or not, but the variety is there. So the menu is one of its positives. Price versus speed. Both pretty good, actually. Price versus quality of service. Definitely more well known about their prices than their quality of service. I could go through all the judgments, and feel free to do it whenever you need it, whenever you need a lot of details and it's a really important decision. But at a less demanding level of decisions, you would like to use a shortcut. The shortcut says that you need only the judgments that belong to the first row of your matrix over here and the items above the diagonal that are these. So quality versus menu. Is Primanti more well known for their quality or their menu? Definitely their menu. So I'm putting 5 and I double click the arrow to go for the other side. It's more well known about the menu than the quality. Menu or speed? I would say slightly more important the menu. Speed or quality of service? Definitely speed. Let's see, what did we do here? It seems that my highest priority would be helping here, menu, I think. Yes, it's more well known about its menu, the variety of the menu and the speed, and also the price. Quality and quality of service are not its strongest suits. So you would think that Primanti is a place that you can find a lot of different items to eat. They will bring them quickly to you, and the prices are pretty good. That's it. That's the profile of the company that I defined. Now, notice that for the first time, nobody asked about your opinion. I didn't say, what do you think? I said, hey, what's happening? What's actually happening? If I open a page on Google and see the reviews about Primanti, what are the positives that I'm going to see? Again, in an A&P model, we go a step back. We are not so subjective. We are more objective as we can be. I should do, in order to get my results, I should go and set up the profiles of the other two alternatives. So that would be Panera. Now that we know the process, I don't want to take your time to enter the values. So I'm going to go directly to the matrix and enter the values. Panera is well known for its quality. And I would say probably a 4 over price. Menu over price. Yes, interesting. I would say the menu is again more important. I double click to change the arrow. Price over speed, equally bad or good. Quality of service versus price. Maybe the price is slightly better. And now I'm going and seeing quality versus menu. The menu is better, but not by much. Menu versus speed. The menu is better. Quality of service versus speed. The speed is slightly better. Let's see if we agree with the profile. Panera is well known for their variety, quality, not so good prices or speed, and a little bit underwhelming quality of service. And the last one that we have is Piada. I'll do the same work for Piada. Now you will see me doing it from the front, and price versus quality, price versus quality. Piada, right? Definitely on the quality side. Price versus menu. Menu, although both price and menu are not very good for this option. Price versus speed. Speed. Quality of service, good. Quality versus menu. Quality is much better. The variety of the menu is really, really limited. Menu versus speed. Probably I'll give it to speed, although they are not very fast. But what I want to say is that quality and quality of service is what really pops out for this option. Now, because I want to make sure that I'm good, I'll go and check the inconsistency for the matrices that I entered. So I'm looking at this number and making sure that my value is less than 10%. And it is. So I'm pretty well over there. Here are my new results. It's a little bit different this time. Panera pops out a little bit more in front of the rest, and Piada this time manages to come up on top. Why this difference? I'll give you kind of a hint. In AHP, I'm really showing, based on the criteria that you want, what should happen, what you should choose. In ANP, what I do is trying to show you what's the real situation. And based on what you told me that is important, you should be going for Panera and Piada, because their profiles match the profile of the factors that you said. Even if you didn't know it or couldn't describe it through the strictly hierarchical structure of AHP. Are ANP models this simple? No, not really. Let's take a look at the market share model of ANP that is pretty representative of the situation. Here is a market share. What does it mean, market share? Well, it means, I'll tell you actually the story behind it. At the beginning, and this is a recent method, it started end of the 70s from Thomas L. Saaty. That's why also the competition is Thomas L. Saaty. And at the beginning, they were trying to find ways to validate the method. You probably don't know it, but it's really difficult to identify ways to prove that the decision-making method is really working. The reason is simple. There is no right or wrong decision. When I have an optimization method, even today, when I develop an algorithm for optimization, I can say, hey, my algorithm gives more often the right results than yours, and it does it in a faster manner, so it's better. In decision-making, I don't have that, because nobody can prove that the decision is right or wrong unless some time passes, and you can see, looking back, whether the results were good or bad from that decision. So you don't have an immediate way to prove that the method works. Based on that, we went for market shares. A market share model forecasts market shares. And what did we do? We said, okay, give me the information that you have based on the previous year. And if I'm able to forecast the numbers that you already know that are out there, then probably my method is working correctly, right? So the initial situation was, These are the alternatives that belong to the same industry. These are the factors that the decision makers care about. And here are my results. How far or close are my results to the real results, to the actual ones? My results are good, close to the actual ones, then we're talking about a really good market share model. Not all the market share models will end up being good because you need to have a really good knowledge of your domain, of the industry that you are evaluating in order to get good market share forecasting using AHP and ANP model in this situation. Now, I bet that you would think we have so many different ways of forecasting market shares. Why would I ever go for this kind of method that will ask me to evaluate and set my opinion in so many different places in order anyway to get something that I already knew? There is a reason. The reason is because you want to be able to change the situation. You do a market share model, not only to prove that this market share model is well set up and can match the predictions of other forecasting methods, but more importantly, to find ways to change the situation. So let's see, I have over here a simple forecasting model for market shares related to McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's. Mind you, this is a quite old model. It's from around 2000. That means that the factors that are at play here might probably are not the same factors that you would use today for the same model, because that's actually something very important with all the HP and the ANP models. They need to be updated and renewed, and pretty often. Even the judgments that you enter need to be changed from time to time, mostly because situations change, perspective changes. Think about yourself 5 years ago. Would you enter the same values when evaluating even a personal decision model, like what pair of shoes or what car to buy or where to go vacations? Would you answer the same way that you are answering now? For example, if I was choosing about a location to go for vacations, 10 years ago, probably I would say I wanted to have lots of abilities to go out and have fun, entertainment, sports, nice places for swimming and beaches and all that stuff. Nowadays that I have a 5-year-old, my priorities and my criteria have changed. The first thing that I usually ask are there any zoos in that city? Because that's one of the favorites for little kids. And then I would say, do they have a children's museum? Priorities and factors evolve and change along with the decision maker and the situation that you are analyzing. So you have to always be on top of them and update them. Going back to our market share model. If I go and see the results, fine. They predict the market share of that particular time. But what I care about is that if I try to do an ANP sensitivity, obviously here, with respect, for example, to McDonald's, I will be able to see how each factor affects my results. For example, how the priorities that I give to nutrition affect which place is being selected. Or how cleanliness affects my decision. The more you care about cleanliness, the more you see the trade-off between McDonald's and Wendy's. Now, this is not a linear an exact linear change, and we can discuss it at another point of time. But let's keep that you can't predict what is important for the people, for your customer base, and based on that prediction, you can go and improve the situation. If you have a specific budget to allocate, you're going to use it in order to improve that perspective. Now, we kind of have seen all three of our basic methods, although we didn't see yet how to break down big problems in benefits, opportunities, cost, and risk, which is something that we are going to do tomorrow. Although you have available the material in the links that Lirong sent you in order to start looking at it as well. We are going to take a very short break, and then we are going to come back and do an exercise. So we are going to set up a model all together and analyze it. But this time we are going to do it in the breakout rooms after I describe the initial setup.